we got back out on the field. In the second half, we scored a goal and we kept them from scoring.
Mm-hmm.
So the guys, naturally, they want to come off the field at the end of the game and they're like, oh my gosh, what
we got defeated 5-1.
And I was like, you guys, we played 2 games today.
Yeah.
Guys, the first game, they won. But the second game, we won. Guys, we shut them out. The best team in the league, we shut them out. And I could see all of their brains, like their minds
completely changed.
Totally changed.
Mindset, perspective.
Like the energy, the state, like these guys
the
got
energy
on.
in you right now is awesome.
Oh, dude,
I can see it coming out. It's like seeping from you.
But it was a moment where I realized, like, it truly is. Like, our lives are experienced by what we focus on, right?
When life wants to break you, do you let it define you or find the strength to keep climbing and choose what comes next? Today, I sit down with Chad Thompson, a devoted family man, coach, entrepreneur, and the founder of the ForeveRest Foundation, to talk about how loss, love, and purpose have shaped every part of his journey. From coaching on the soccer fields to a life-altering moment, Chad shares a powerful story about resilience, fatherhood, and turning unimaginable grief into a mission to help others heal. This is a story about finding strength in heartbreak and building something meaningful in the name of the people we carry with us here on Navigating No. Chad, thank you so much for coming.
Absolutely.
Man, this is awesome because you and I met because you are my daughter's soccer coach here in the Liberty Lake area and Spokane Valley area. Mm-hmm. And as a strength coach to athletes myself, I immediately saw how great of a coach you were, and we hit it off. And I've heard your story, and you really hit home with me with the trauma that you experienced in your life. And the way that you explained it just really hit home with me, and it's exactly what we talk about. And your story is just a journey of overcoming all of these challenges, like a lot of people do, but you've also been hit with some hard trauma. And your story's fantastic, and who you've become and with your wife, and it's like, I just want the audience to hear your story and really be able to share what you've accomplished and what you've overcome and how you've dealt with those things and how you're still dealing with those. And so thank you for being a guest and being willing to be here.
Yeah, well, I'm honored. I don't think that I'd anticipated, diving back into our story anytime in the near future. We've got these things, and we'll dive into,
Mm-hmm.
some of the hard and some of the things we've gone through. But, a lot of the emotions around the hurt, the pain, the loss, we save it for almost a certain time of year.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't mean that I don't allow myself to feel these emotions,
Mm-hmm.
but there's some pretty heavy emotions around some things in our life, and really have, had to practice almost compartmentalizing, but also not just stuffing it away so that I don't feel those, because that's definitely what I think keeps me grounded in life.
Uh-huh. Absolutely. Well, and we will dive into that, and because that trauma is, people can relate to it, but that's something that's overcoming, and you're still going through. It's not easy. There's no words for it. There's no easy way out, but your background is that you are this amazing dad, an amazing coach, and an amazing man and entrepreneur. And can you please tell us just a quick background of who you are so that the audience can kind of get caught up of what an exceptional person Chad Thompson really is?
Yeah, thank you. Appreciate all those
And you have some
words
amazing calves.
I was actually going to start with that. I was going to say, I think the first compliment that you gave me was about my calves, and I didn't even know you. I was like, wow, what a kind compliment.
Right. Well, because as a personal trainer, it's like I look at somebody, I'm like, man, that guy's got some amazing calves. But when I compliment someone randomly out of the blue, people are like, you're kind of a weirdo, right? But it's like, I know, and I work so hard at my calves, and I'm still a stick with lips. So it's like, oh my gosh. But it's like, you have exceptional legs, but you're an amazing soccer player, and you're a stud. And it's just awesome.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah, that's how we bonded.
That's
where it began.
So you have bulls. Friends. I have calves.
That's right. Well, I think, I mean, I look back at my life and honestly, I feel like I could be on the other end of this just listening right now. And usually I am. I listen to a lot of podcasts and, and hear other people's stories. And I look back at my life and I wouldn't say that I feel like I've lived some extraordinary life. I was an athlete growing up. My dad just took me to all the sports, multi-sport athlete. Soccer's my passion. I love surfing. I've always been a board sport person, snowboarder, skateboarder, wakeboarder, all that stuff. And so sports, I would say just in the heart of even this talk today is it's really taught me a lot about how to, overcome the challenges and the setbacks and the startovers and the injuries and all these things where you've got these goals in life. And sports was really the foundation in the beginning.
Now, you're basically Medical Lake based, right? You were born in Medical Lake, Washington, but now you live in the Valley.
Born in New York, born on the East Coast.
Oh, okay.
And and my parents transplanted us here. Dad was born in Spokane.
Okay.
So they escaped New York, brought us here, and that's really been the my younger years, and then I moved away for a little bit.
Did you, when you were getting into sports, were you a natural athlete? Like, were you always somebody, and your brother also played soccer, so were people watching you and saying, you're going to be really good? Like, did you gravitate towards soccer and you were just like, ooh, I have aspirations of going pro or going college or something like that?
It's a funny question. I think I obsess over, I'm an achiever and I set goals, and it's always been that way, like a natural thing. Playing soccer, I'd watch pro soccer and I'm like, man, I want to be a pro. And I remember having that goal. And one day, I maybe I brought it up to my mom or something. And she said, you don't want to be a pro soccer player. She said, all pro soccer players, like they have some brain damage. And I was like, what? And she's like, yeah, like all the headers they take, she's like, it's not a good path to take. And it's not true.
Sure.
I mean, yes, some do, but that's
Something
stuck in my
seeped
brain.
into you.
And I don't know if it was like just this passing conversation or if it was a sit down. I don't remember, but it stuck.
Yeah.
And so from that day, I was like, yeah, I can't be a pro soccer player because I don't want brain damage.
No.
So I took off, I played competitive. I played on a semi-pro team here in Spokane. Which is it was the Shadow originally, and it turned into a different team that I played for a while. So I've played high level soccer. I played college at the Falls. Now I coach, and so soccer's always been a passion of mine. I decided early on I wasn't going to go pro because of
brain damage.
Brain damage. I don't want that.
Brutal.
I know.
That's a message to parents. Like, how you talk to your kids
Oh my gosh,
is imperatively important, right? Like, and it's funny, but when you talk of, I as a coach myself. And I was with parents, they would say things in front of their kids. I'm like, maybe you shouldn't say that. You shouldn't talk like that in front of your kids, especially like with weight or the way that they look. And that does have an impact on kids. Yeah. And obviously, you were afraid of brain damage of getting hit. So be careful of how we speak as a coach. But,
100%.
Okay, did you find yourself like? Did you connect with mentors at that point, like with coaches? Like when you were enjoying soccer, did you like it because your dad pushed you, or because you had a coach that was like, you know what, Chad, you're really good at this, and maybe you should come along? Like, what got you into coaching?
I'd say I've always been competitive, and my dad's always been a sports lover. And so I don't know if it was any one moment. He did coach me on multiple sports, baseball, basketball, a little bit of soccer. So I've always had that support and that belief. And I think that's one thing my parents did give me that really built into, me pursuing sports my entire life. My brother and I both, is that they just always believed in us. And they always, would encourage us to push through the times we wanted to quit. And I'd love to, talk on my philosophy of quitting and letting go later on. But, they really helped us to just see the joy in the challenge and the growth. And, you're not always picked first. You're not always the starter. And I would say in soccer, you know, I found some success. In other sports, I was a short kid growing up. So
with great calves.
Yeah, with great calves. Yeah.
Okay.
So all the energy went there. But playing basketball, even, you know, I was a short kid, so I had to use my speed. And so, but I'd say that, you know, that's really where it began. But then over time, I mean, I had some great coaches and learned a little bit. And so that'd be the other thing, is that I just really took the best from each experience. I think I'd always call myself like an eternal optimist, because there's hard in it all, but I'd always try to find what I could learn and take from those experiences. And, you know, my coach in college was just a funny guy. Is back, I guess, when you could smoke and coach a team, you know, at the same time. And we always had this joke. His name was ForeveRest, and he was an old professional player from a different country, I forget where. And we would be amazed. I remember the first practice, and we're there, and he's got us all gathered around. His hands are hanging by his side, and he talked to us for like 15, 20 minutes. And he had a real scruffy voice, and he tells us to go and, you know, get to our positions.
Yeah.
And then, like, out of nowhere, he pulls up a cigarette and starts smoking. And I'm like, where was that thing the whole time? And this guy just sit on the sideline and just smoke and coach our games. But a scruffy old, you know, just real scratchy voice, man, a few words.
Yeah.
But such a good coach, like strategy, and, you know, he said what he meant what he said. And I remember just the heart you could feel behind his words.
Yeah.
Even though he didn't say a lot, it was the heart, you know? And I think I took that from him, like, to really care about your players. It's not just about the win, you know? And especially at younger ages, it really isn't about the win. It's about the character and the love. And if you can instill that belief and show the team you love them, then you're going to go through the hard and the good, you know, and you're going to win ultimately in the end.
Well, I love that. And do you think that your background in soccer, is that what started a foundation? You had kind of mentioned that about it was teaching these life lessons of, let's say, a foundation of how to overcome certain challenges and how to start business or anything. Like, do you give a lot of your experience and let's say expertise in that back to soccer or into sports? Was that background what kind of gave you the foundation to be successful at the things moving forward? Was that like the foundation?
I would say it was for sure the foundation.
Okay.
Yeah. I think that had a lot to do with, you know, just me moving forward. I think, again, naturally, I've just always been a competitive person. So I like the challenge. You know, I like stepping into things where I feel like it's a little over my head and then kind of finding my way through. I like being pushed physically. And I don't know where that all came from, but I think that those early years of just establishing myself in sports, and, you know, and I guess that's why I coach today. I'm a fan of seeing parents bring their kids into sports, getting them uncomfortable, you know, and starting early, because, you know, if kids can learn, they're not going to be great at everything. But they get out there and they realize, man, I've got these bodies, this body. And if I could learn to function with it and use it and, you know, win some, lose some, like, I can take that into other areas of life. And so, yeah, that's probably where it started for me.
Well, it's funny that you say that, because I didn't know anything about soccer other than Ted Lasso. Right. And so
you told me that when
I did, because I don't. I've gone to a World Cup game with Germany, and that was like super cool because the Europeans love it, and I can enjoy it, but I don't understand the rules and I don't understand how to do it. All I know is that when I get out on the field and I try to participate as like the parent kids games, I am awful.
Well, you just
awful.
You kick as hard as you can.
But that's another funny connection that you and I just realized. Is
two balls to the face. I remember.
I did take it, and that wasn't intentional. But it was like karate was my background, so I can kick. Kicking a ball is something totally different, right?
Yeah.
And you actually had a background in Shotokan karate too, because we had a mutual sensei out of Medical Lake. And that was just one more connection that kind of brought us together, and we could experience these things. And what I love is that you're talking about the parents coming in and dropping their kids off and being a part of it and learning just as much as our kids are. But I love it because right when Heidi and I got there and we started to watch, all the kids would just run at the ball at the same time, right? Like they're obviously not pro players, but as our daughter started to develop, it's like they became aware that the ball doesn't just, let's not all attack the ball. You have positions, you have strategy involved, and you are an amazing coach because you're able to see their strengths and their weaknesses, but the way that you talk to the kids is beyond. And I love listening and hearing what you talk to the kids, whether they win or they lose. And I just think that that's a skill set that I don't know if many people have. Is that something that you were taught or that you experienced, or you can put yourself in the kid's shoes and say, this is how I would want to be coached? Or I was coached by a bad coach who had a cigarette in his mouth, right? Like, how did you become someone who was able to put yourself in the shoes of a child?
For the record, Core was awesome. He wasn't a bad coach. Cigarette and all. I've definitely had some coaches that I didn't feel respected by. And I've been on some soccer teams, one in particular that I remember was a very emotional experience. 21 years old, and it was where I was pretty competitive at that time, and playing on a really high level team, and we played against the Vancouver Whitecaps in a game, and I mean they're a pro team, and it was really high level soccer. I loved it, but a lot of the guys that I was playing with, I've always been somebody that's just, I'm very inclusive when it comes to even high school. I'd hang out with all the groups. I didn't have just, I was in sports, and I wasn't just hanging out with the jocks. I was hanging out with the guys out on the corner, smoking. I was hanging out with the drama kids. I was in drama. I was, I just always found myself enjoying a lot of different types of people. But in this particular team, it was very cliquey. And a lot of the guys came from some other college teams, like Whitworth and Gonzaga, and not Gonzaga, but just a variety of different surrounding colleges.
So it was hard to assimilate with them.
They all knew each other, and I didn't fit in, and the coach didn't do anything to change that.
Yeah.
Felt like an outcast, and that was a really tough time because my heart is like, we're a team. A team should think together. We should feel like we're one. And it wasn't that. And I suffered a year in that. And I remember coming out of that. I mean, it was hard. It's, it's hard to put to words the emotion you feel in those moments. You just don't feel accepted. And I think that can happen in the workplace. I think that happens at school. I think that happens all over the, board. And sometimes we're not conscious of it. And I think this is where it gave me a really valuable life lesson to always be aware of when I am maybe on the in crowd.
Yeah.
To be conscious of the people around me that aren't. Because I think that it wasn't intentional. A lot of the guys on the team are really great guys. And when we're off one-on-one, we'd be buddies.
Yeah.
But when they were in that clique mentality, it was like they were just blinded to the fact that there were some people that were just kind of, left on the outside, and it feels crappy.
Yes.
And I think everybody probably at some point has that experience. And so I guess the lesson I took was like, just be conscious of that. And so even in youth sports, recently in this last tournament we did, we had a guest player, young, sweet 10-year-old girl jump on our team, with some soccer experience, but doesn't know our team. And our team's been playing together for 3-4 years now. And so really just being conscious and aware of that, and then inviting her in, but then also calling out the leaders on our team to invite her in. Because it's one thing if the coach says it, but it's another thing if the team actually invites, that child, that person in. And so I just think as a leader, like you've got to be conscious of those things. And that's what ends up building a really dynamic culture, and culture is what in the wins in the teams that I've been on that have been just like outstanding. It's the culture that's got us through the highs and the lows. Like it's the culture that's really built this rock solid program. And so that's, I think on a small level, that's what I try to do always when I'm in a leadership role is like, what do we do? What defines us? What are our values? What's our mission? What are we after?
Well, and it's really hard for you to do that to kids, like little kids, right? But I think you naturally do it by bringing in. When I coached, it was always like I would call them the big buds and the little buds, and the big buds would have to take the little buds as like a mentor mentee, right?
Yeah.
And it's like little buds get with a big bud, right? And it was like because they are buddies, right? And there's a size difference or an age difference, and it's like they feel included. And they feel like they're valued or that they bring something to the team. And even if they're small or they're young or they're not as mature, they see what it feels like to belong to something.
Yeah.
And I absolutely understand what you're talking about. And I see that and I saw that you do that on the field. And you create this culture with the kids where they high five each other. They are excited when one of them gets a goal, if one of them saves the goal, and it's like they all run out to each other, and it is an absolute team. And that is culture, and
So
you've
fun.
created that.
Yeah, good parents too. That's the other trick.
Well,
You recruit the good parents.
Well, I love it because like on the sideline, it's all the parents and we're all like, go, go, go. And all I know is that the ball goes left or right. But I think you including the parents to be a part and not like vicariously live through the child or like tell the child that they're doing right or wrong. It's like, we're all in this together. And it's like, have a fun time.
Yeah.
And it's not about the win. It's about the experience because you weren't 10-0. Like it wasn't like you won every game. Yeah. And how did you, one of the biggest things that I talk about from the stage, and I make the analogy of where in life, if you talk to a kid who really wants to win the game and is really set on it and they lose, as a coach, as a parent, we usually go up to that child and say, it's okay. Don't worry about it. There will be another game. There will be another season. There will be another competition. There will be another finale. But why can we say that to our kids, but we can't say that to ourselves in the real world, right? Like when we don't get that job, like there is another job. There is another HR head manager position at 30 different banks, 30 different credit unions. But it's like, as a parent, as an adult, we can't tell that to ourselves. But you're able to tell that to the kids. And I wanted to hear what you thought of that because you do that. You're like, when they don't win every game or when they get crushed 21-0, that can be heartbreaking, right? How do you tell the kids, don't worry about it, it's okay? And then how do you transfer that to your life?
It's a good question. I think when it comes to coaching, my attitude has always been, it really is 80% psychology. It's, how are you thinking out on the field? How are you thinking about a win or a loss? And there's a lot here. I mean, identity can get wrapped up in the things we do.
Sure.
And so that'd be a different path to talk down. But I think when it comes to kids and how not to get caught up in the loss, I think going back to maybe, probably in this last tournament, one of our challenging games, actually, we'll take it to the season. We played a team and, these girls were definitely a year older, if not two, than all our girls. Really rough. The coach wasn't coaching. He's letting his girls just trample us. The ref's not calling anything. And the girls are just getting humiliated. I think every single girl came off the field at one point crying.
Yeah,
just
in
totally
tears.
in tears. You probably remember that game. And, we got beat and it wasn't a fun game. I think those are the most important coaching moments because, we all get addicted to the win.
Yeah. But you stepped up to it.
Yeah.
And the challenge was there.
Yeah.
And you did.
But that challenge in those moments, I think the conversation with the girls after the game is, first off, I mean, helping them to calm down because they're all riled up, but, celebrating what did we do in that game that we can be proud of? Because I think this is just true in life. Our reality is based on the stories we tell. And if the story we tell walking off that field as I suck and I lost and, we're no good.
Yes.
That's a scary story that becomes a reality. And it's what causes a lot of kids to never try again. Yeah, I think, and that's linking it back to, I didn't get the job. I got turned down for that management position. And then we tell this story to ourselves of, how, man, and then we link it to all these other moments where we got rejected. And all of a sudden we're giving up on our dream rather than, finding one thing that we can be celebrating. Like, gosh, did you see that turn that you made? Did you see that shot that you took? Like, hey, I'll give you another great example. This was, I coach high school soccer for my kids' school. And our first game of the season, I was a new coach last year.
Yeah.
And our very first game of the season, we're playing one of the hardest teams. And it was,
it's the greatest setup, right?
Yeah, it's an away game. It's in their field, and their field's like twice as big. It's turf.
Yeah.
And we play on this lumpy grass field. And, it's a brand new team. We lost some of our best players, and here's a new coach. And so I'm like, man, here we go. And all the parents are like, how's this guy going to do? So we get out there and we play, and our first half, we get demolished 5-0, and it's halftime. And I'm thinking like, oh my gosh, like if this goes the way it's going, this will be the worst loss in like the league's history.
Sure.
And so we, I made some adjustments or whatever. And we got back out on the field. In the second half, we scored a goal and we kept them from scoring. So the guys, naturally they want to come off the field at the end of the game and they're like, oh my gosh, what
we got defeated 5-1.
And I was
right?
like, you guys, we played 2 games today.
Yeah.
Guys, the first game, they won. But the second game, we won. Guys, we shut them out. The best team in the league, we shut them out. And I could see all of their brains, like their minds
completely
were like,
changed.
Totally changed.
Mindset, dude, perspective.
Like the energy, the state, like these guys
the
got
energy
on.
in you right now is awesome.
Oh, dude,
I can see it coming out. It's like seeping from you.
But it was a moment where I realized like it truly is like our lives are experienced by what we focus on, right? And so when they started to focus on that second half, like it was a whole game itself. Like we just shut out the best team in the league, and that was the story. And they went home, and the school is celebrating that we shut out the best team in the league because who cares about that first game?
Yeah.
That was
a warm up.
That was a warm up,
right?
Yeah, like play us again.
Yeah,
and the rest of the season, we built on that, and every time we'd play, and we didn't win a lot of games. But we learned how to celebrate these wins that we did have, and that built this. And I'll tell you, the win here's the victory coming from that was, I really was in a vulnerable place as a coach. Even the AD said, hopefully we're going to have a good season. If we don't, he's like, it might be hard to get some guys to come back and play this year. He's like, and a lot of cards,
pressure,
lot of cards stacked against you right now. And so what we did is we focused on these wins. We actually had some pretty cool wins as well. But by the end of the season, the guys were so jacked on how we were thinking about our season. It wasn't about like, oh my gosh, we ended 5th in our league. It was about like all of these rad things that happened. Like one of our guys scored on a corner kick, which is so hard to do.
Sure.
Right? Like we had this win over.
Well, not for me, but
you could do it. You could do it, right?
Yeah. Awful.
But, so the result is I got a message just, a couple weeks ago, and there is a like swarm of kids that want to play soccer this year. They're so excited. They're and at our school, it's a smaller private school, and they're allowing 7th graders to play on the high school team. And there's like 8, 10 something, 7th graders. They're all just lined up to play, so excited. So like the energy now at the school has changed because of what we're focusing on. So
and that is the win, right?
And that's the win.
And I think that the journey of all of those failures, that's almost more memorable than if you were undefeated for the year,
100%.
right? I remember so many times that I didn't win a tournament. I did not get a modeling gig. And I remember that more than when I did get a modeling gig, right? And it's like these little experiences, these memories of like heartache or pain, they kind of make us. They shape us, they make us stronger. And even if you're not undefeated, it's like, the confidence that you gave these kids now,
Yeah.
and then the energy that you let them receive, and the synergy within the whole group. Now they all want to be a part of another winning team, and let's try this again because it's round 2, right?
Yeah.
And it's like, that's a great coach, and that's bringing something that they didn't have, and you stepped into this position. You're like, maybe some stacks or some cards were stacked against me, but you ran with the challenge, and like you did as a kid, and you went with it.
Yeah.
And as a result, you've changed people's lives, and you're making all these kids maybe appreciate soccer, not be afraid of brain damage. And maybe go pro, right? Like, you have no idea. How many coaches or people in your life, for example, said something to you, like your mom, that actually encouraged you to keep going.
Right.
Like, I'm sure you have people that were in your life that were like, believed in you and said, Chad, you know what? You actually can do this. You can go to college. You can become the CEO. You can start your own business. You can ask that woman out and ask her to be your wife, right? Like, it's like the confidence boost from other people. You're that person to so many kids. Did you have people like that too, besides your dad?
Yeah, well, I think for sure my mom as well. I mean, that one thing that she said really, I don't want her to be remembered in history as the reason I didn't go pro.
Yeah,
damn,
exactly.
Mom. No, she, both of my parents were super encouraging, and my mom, if anybody, taught me how to push. When it's hard, and in school, I mean, she was always that person, just encouraging me to go the extra mile. And so for sure, I credit her undoubtedly with that. That's what's given me that push in life, and to stand up for when, I think that something needs to change, or I need to say something that's truthful and it's hard. She's that person that's really taught me to do that. Speak up for what I think is right. But I think there's a handful of people in my life, and I've always sought out mentorship. And to find somebody that is just at a higher level, or somebody that would be willing to step in and just guide me. And so, I think that, those people don't just always walk into your life. They don't just show up. You got to have, a desire, or maybe an awareness that there's areas you need to grow. And I think I'm very conscious of how many weak spots I've got in my life, how many areas of just really needing to grow. And I really try to work on those things daily, and just identify what's the area of growth today. And, and who could I find to mentor me in that area? And maybe it's listening to Navigating No, and somebody that you've interviewed that, is going to just give me this one idea, this one shift, this new strategy. Maybe it's inviting somebody in, but I would say some of the people that have come into my life have been just gifts, these grace moments of somebody showed up, and other times I've just really had to go out and look. But I think it all ties to, the big question of what does somebody want in their life? And I know when I look back, and I was kind of thinking through this, even our discussion today, over the last few days, of, what's taken me through these moments in my life that definitely mark, these moments, these stamped moments of like maybe failure or rejection or setback or start overs.
Sure.
I think that's a word I use a lot. I'm like, God, I feel like I've had to start over so many times in my life.
Yeah. Well, that's the epitome of what you just talked about the kids. The first half they lost, and then let's start over. And then when you start over, they actually won because they were one, and they shut out the rest.
Yeah, and exactly. And could we have just thrown in the towel at half? Yeah, I mean, the guys could have just said, "Game's over. Screw this. I'm gonna go out there and I'm gonna just finish the game." But the attitude of starting over is like, man, when you start over, it's fresh, it's new. Like, you've got all opportunity then out in front of you, and you're not looking at the past, You're taking that, experience, and now you're building a new future. And I think just to segue into that mindset, as I was kind of thinking, like, what has helped me to get through these things? And it's always been, I guess the start over is really creating a new compelling future. What is it that I'm going to wake up to today that's going to get me excited? what does this year look like? What does this sport, what does this business look like? And, in 5 years and 10 years, and just getting the picture. And then you hit that setback, and you run into that wall again. And you've got to do it again. And that's just one of the natural patterns of life.
Yes.
There's no straight path. So I think that, clarity on where you are going and what you want, that's a huge part of this.
When you are going to run into challenges and doors that are closed in front of you, and it's just, you have to find that path around. That's the whole premise of the idea of navigating the no or no, right? I want to go back really quick because you had mentioned you see it as an opportunity. And I love that you say that, because when you change your perspective and you see through a different perception of what people see you as, it opens up the doors to choices and opportunities and potentials, right? Versus like, the world is against me, everything's stacked, I'm going to fail, I'm going to fail. No, what is the positive, right? Like, what you always have a choice. And if you think like, okay, I do have a choice, I can go left or right. It might hurt both ways, but maybe one of them is a little less harmful, or it will cost a little less, right? And it's like having the mindset of, you see it as a start over. No, every time that you come to that block, it's just another start, right? It's just like in video games, when once you get to that level, you're not going to go back down to that level, right? And maybe this first level you're gonna fail at, your character, your avatar is gonna perish 13 times, but then eventually you get through the halfway, and then it starts over, but then you get to the third level. And I think that's life. Life is these roads and these pathways that you come up to, and it's like, you do have the ability to choose a lot of those ways, even though they hurt. And even sometimes they feel like ultimatums, or like there is no choice. There really is. Yeah. And sometimes they're not great, but there is a choice, and there is a potential moving forward.
Yeah. You said, like, I see it as opportunity for growth. And I see no as an opportunity to grow. Every time there is a no, and what no represents, right? Like no being these moments in life when things either don't go your way, or the flip side of it, you're supposed to say no to something. Yeah. Because I think that,
delivering a no is just as hard as accepting a no sometimes, right? Having to fire someone is just as difficult sometimes as being fired, right? Getting rejected by someone, not landing that job, not getting that promotion can be just as hard as the HR person saying, sorry, Chad, you're not going to get this promotion. Yeah. That person doesn't sleep well at night either. And it's like the delivering and accepting the no can be just as difficult.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that, so to that idea of how do we change our perspective? I mean, it all does come down to what's our perspective. And, just in the recent years, like I'll take the last 3 years of our life, we've gone through some immense challenges, and it's helped me. And I've always known that life is hard, but it's really helped me to understand life is hard. Life is just hard. Yeah. But knowing which hard is good hard is a matter of perspective. It's just a matter of how you're looking at life, because there is good hard in life. When life is just hard, it's hard, doesn't mean that that's a bad thing. And so understanding, when we talk about no as an opportunity to grow, well, it's because of the perspective you have on life. Every time something comes at you, I see it as happening for me. And I ask, like, what's the pivot here? What's the movement that I can make here that I'm going to, grow from and learn from? And maybe it's going to push me back further for a minute, but it's going to make me stronger somehow, because that's how muscle's built, right? It's resistance. Yes. And so I think that is, it's for sure an ingrained and embedded philosophy, or especially over the last 3 years of having to just really figure out, how am I going to wake up today? How am I going to move forward today? How am I going to get my head off the pillow and show up for my family and show up for my business, and and press through what I really don't want to do. Right now.
Do the hard work that's required to continue living, right? And it's I want to go back just for a second, and that is that really taps into the coach and the child, or the parent and the child, and saying there will be another game. it hurts to lose. It hurts to not win. It hurts to be rejected. But it's like, it does make you stronger, and it gives you a different perspective. And as long as you see things objectively and you don't take them emotionally or personally, it's like, okay, life is going to be hard, but man, the entire journey is full of those hards that help you get to where you are now, where you're an adult and you have to make adulting choices and seeing those potentials. And it's like, now you're this adult who goes through, I want to call it real life trauma, real life challenges and no's, not I just lost a game, or I didn't get the lollipop and I didn't win the spelling bee. It's like, as an adult, all of those challenges growing up as a kid kind of set you up to take these rejections and these trauma at a different light and to be able to see those differently. But it's not easy. Yeah. And I'm sure that's where you're going right now.
Well, yeah, I just want to add on. I think, you had mentioned how when you're talking to a child and they lose a game, one response could be, well, there's always another game. But I actually don't think that's the right response, because I think what that is telling the child is to focus on, just the win. It's like, if the win is the objective, then yeah, there's always another game.
Sure.
But, in life, and we all know it. I mean, anybody listening to this right now understands that, like, a lot of your week is not a win. If you've got kids, you understand it. Just this morning, 2-year-old tantrum, markers thrown everywhere, mama's trying to, and it's like that, instead of just a nice, peaceful, quiet morning with a cup of coffee,
right.
It's, crazy.
Trauma, right. Like mayhem.
But, should I focus on the fact that, like, well, we'll have another morning where there's going to be a quiet, peaceful coffee, yeah, that's nice. But the reality is, I don't need to chase that down. The win right now is that we're alive. The win right now is I've got breath in my lungs right here, and I get to the freedom to sit and have a child here. And I have a wife. And so I think that there's
gratefulness.
There's a gratefulness and appreciation that has to go hand in hand in every moment, because where I think as adults we get lost in the identity of what we do.
And you had mentioned that earlier.
And I think that begins, and I think this is generational. And actually, I think that any parent listening can really maybe even reflect on, how am I raising my children right now, even in sports? Because if the focus is on the win and the kid's identity gets wrapped around every time they score that goal, they get an ice cream cone. Every time they get the win, they get some reward. What's it teaching them when they lose?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Losing is bad. Winning is good. I should only win. And when I lose, that's not good. And then all of a sudden it builds this mindset and character in them that really isn't healthy. And we know that, but we don't see it because, this is who we are. We've grown up to be that person because that's who we were when we were kids. And so it's about removing yourself, in my opinion, from the actual thing you're doing. And I do this all the time in business. I try to put myself almost in this like kid-like mindset of like, I'm just playing one big giant video game. It's just one game and I'm gonna have fun today. And there's gonna be some wins, some losses, whatever.
Right, and you're playing sports at the beginning because it's fun. It's
fun.
like you're growing, you're having kick the can with your friends is way more fun than going into a business and pitching a deal, right? But it is the mentality, it's your perspective or how you're envisioning it. And life is a game, right? And it is the big game, or like Simon Sinek talks about the long game, right? And it's like it is a big video game. And that was the analogy earlier. It's like first level, second level. But when you can look back and say, man, I remember what I was like and what I looked like and how much money I didn't have when I was on level 1, but now I'm on level 10. I wonder if I can get to 15. Right? And it's that game. You're constantly improving. You're constantly growing and learning from those failures because they're just making you stronger.
You're not taking it too seriously. And, my
but
dad...
that's a great thing because I almost don't take things seriously enough sometimes, right? Like I'm just like this big kid. I feel like I'm
nice
12
cows,
years old.
Coach.
Exactly. Like life is, I have so much fun at doing the things that I do, whether they're serious or not. And it's like, things just bounce off of me. And I always try to optimistically look at things. And you call it a video game, and I just call it like fun. Like how am I going to take this horrible situation and try to make it as enjoyable as I can? And one of the things you mentioned was like the gratefulness. Like if a child loses a game, at least you're playing.
Yeah.
At least you have your legs. At least you can see. At least you have a friend that's there that you helped. Like it's like how grateful some of us, or how we don't appreciate some things that we have, right? And that's a hard thing to share with somebody who has everything that they need, right? Who starts off in second base or third base. But man, when you're starting at home, it is hard sometimes, and you hit on that.
Yeah. I think the gratitude thing, and that's, something I do every single day. I think, we all really should. And there's days where I'm miserable and I realize, the reason is I haven't stopped to actually appreciate everything I've got. And then, in a matter of seconds, it's real easy. It's real easy, to appreciate, how much you've got when you just stop for a minute. You think, and there's many people in this world that don't have what you've got right now, even if you've got very little.
And people will change place with you immediately.
In a heartbeat.
In a heartbeat.
Yeah.
And I've told people, like, well, I want to lose weight and I want to get in shape or anything. It's like, there are a million women who would change places with you, right?
Yeah.
There are a million men who would want calves as big as yours, right? In all seriousness, it's like somebody's always going to have more than you, or be better than you, or look better than you, or have more money than you. And it's like, be grateful for what you have, because somebody would change places with you in a heartbeat.
Yeah. Just a quick plug to the organization that we play soccer with is 90 Plus.
Yeah.
And, I was thinking that they really, I love that they've focused on character development over just, building a winning team. Because, I think it aligns with how I would want to raise my children is I'd rather you be an amazing person that's going to be able to win in any area of life than just be this dynamic jerk soccer player.
Yeah.
Not that all kids are going to go that way, but character development at a young age and understanding, like, listen, you knock the other person down. I mean, help them up.
Yeah.
Just have some kindness.
Teamwork.
Teamwork, and think about others, put others first.
But that character development is exactly what you were talking about earlier. Is like sports kind of gave you that foundation of a character build, right? And we play t-ball, and our son, as soon as they're done, they all win, right? They all like get their 3 rounds, they all hit, and when the other team is up and they hit the home run, the last one, the opposing team just runs off the field, even though the other team is still running around the bases. And it's like, stop. Let them experience like that, like getting around the bases. Be the team. Appreciate the opposing team, right? Because they're not the enemy. They're like, if they fall down, help them up. Be kind to each other.
Yeah. I think that is. I think it's something I've struggled with for sure. Being a competitive person,
right?
So it's fun when you get to be on the other end of it and learn from those mistakes. But seeing the kids grow to be leaders, and I think leadership, it really is a choice. You can develop to be a leader, and I think that at young ages, that's our opportunity as parents. My wife and I, when we first got married and we're having our first child, and we came up with this little phrase, ABCs of parenting, which is always be coaching. And always be coaching. ABC. Okay. Yeah. And so, just looking for these little opportunities to help them learn and grow and, and become leaders. And so I think that it's a conscious thing. And in this world, we're so busy. I mean, my life recently has been more freed up, and in this freedom that I've had, it's allowed me to just be more conscious with these still moments with my children that normally my brain would be so busy thinking about the next 50 things I've got to do. And I think we live in that. Or cleaning up the marker. Cleaning up the marker, yeah. 100%. But breaking up the fight. But, I think that we have to consciously be aware of these special moments as parents where we get to speak into our children's lives, even if they're not playing sports. Maybe they're, into something more academic. Being there to be that voice in their life is just so critical and so important. And I would say that, the big thing for me in life right now is clarity. It's really asking myself, am I clear about where I'm going? Because I do believe that so much gets cleared up in our life. So much of the busyness and the things that like we don't love in our life are cleared up when we know exactly where it is we want to go. And the reason for that is because we fill in so many things thinking we know where we're going to go. But when we have a target, like a really big, clear target, and it's future-based, it's not just like tomorrow, but it's future-based, maybe a year, 3 out, or maybe it's the end of the school season, or maybe it's
and you
the end
said
of the
clear,
summer.
you mean vivid, like you
Vivid,
know
crystal
exactly what
clear.
it looks. Okay.
You know where you're going. You know where you're going. I get this picture of if anybody's skied Mount Spokane and they've got the Vista House, and I always get this picture of like the Vista House is this little rock, this old rock shelter right at the top of Mount Spokane. And, if let's just say from wherever you are right now, you look up to the top of Mount Spokane, you point, you say, I want to go there. And this is this crystal clear, vivid place that you want to be at. And not only this, but to tie it into our lives, like not just where you want to be, but who you want to be when you get there. Okay. So like, what is your personality when you get there? What kind of interactions, what kind of person are you going to be? How are you going to interact with others? What does a day look like? How do you speak? How do other people perceive you?
That's what I was going to say. Yeah.
Right? Like really getting, like when I say vivid, I mean like crystal clear. Like you can really identify that future self. And, so you picture that like Vista House right at the top of Mount Spokane, wherever you're at, like I'm going to set off on this journey. Well, there's really only one direction now, right? You're not going to go north, south, east, or west. You're just going north, right? To the Vista House. And so you've eliminated the question of whether I should go these other directions. But then you set off on this journey and all of a sudden you hit, Spokane River. And you're like, well, I didn't anticipate it being at, this heavy of a flow right now. So I've got to go right or left, get to the bridge. That delays you a little bit. And so all of these different moments on this journey are like these no's, these setbacks, these like crap.
The topographical map. I mean, it's like the red lines behind me. It's not a straight line.
It's not a straight line.
Even though you're going towards the house that you have vividly, mentally pictured. And Matt Dubin talked about that. He goes, I wanted a specific dream home. And somebody said, well, what does that home look like? He goes, well, it's just a mansion. Well, you could walk by that mansion every day, and if you don't know what that mansion looks like,
100%.
you could walk by it. So, all right, so you have this or you have this vision of Vista House up on Mount Spokane, and you're running into all these challenges.
Yeah, and that is life inevitably, right? But I think there's two things here. Number one is I didn't start off early enough with a crystal clear vision. And so I look back at these, what I would call, say, startovers or setbacks or whatever they might be. And a lot of them I'd actually say were me quitting. And I'm against quitting, right? And I look back and I'm like, damn, why did I quit? And the answer to that is real simple, because what people confuse quitting with is knowing when to let go. And I didn't know when to let go or what the difference is between knowing when to let go and quitting. But it's just a difference. It's a matter of perspective.
There you go.
Okay.
Yeah.
So when that little Vista House is your destination and you can describe it, you can see it, you see the fire, if you've ever been in there crackling, it's like a really cool spot to be on like a blizzardy day in the middle of winter at the top of Mount Spokane with the fire crackling and I brought my kids up there, and it's a cool thing. And the snow's piled up to the windows, and I can picture that in my mind in this moment. If that's where I want to be, and I'm on the journey there, and I run into the obstacle, like now I'm at the river. Well, gosh, like this is going to add another maybe 3 hours to this trip, and I've got to find a way around this. And there's this moment where you just like, is it worth it?
Yes.
Right. I don't know.
Is it a priority?
Is it a priority?
And you question that in your mind, because quitting is one thing, and then saying, is it a priority?
Right.
And if it's not a priority, then maybe it will be a priority later.
Exactly.
And you can always come back to it.
Yes.
But that is that kind of that question where you're at that point, you're like, okay, is it worth it to continue on?
Exactly. And so knowing when to let go is different than quitting.
Yes.
Right? And it's a matter of perspective. And so I look back on my life and all of these moments in life where, I would say either I quit or there was some sort of a setback, and now I'm on a different journey. And I look back and I think I didn't have that Vista house picture. I didn't have that perfect, vivid, clear destination. I had kind of a blurry idea of where I was going. I kind of had like the gist of it. So anything I did would get me, somewhere, but I really didn't know if that was actually getting me to where I wanted to go because I didn't know where I wanted to go. And so knowing when to let go of something comes down to knowing where you want to go.
Well,
right? So knowing when to let go is knowing where you want to go.
Well, and I want to add on to that because you and I have discussed this with owning businesses and just me scaling, and it is that it's not only like vividly picturing it, but like deciding at that moment, okay, I have not described it enough.
Yeah.
I don't have a vivid picture or a clear picture of it. Now I'm at that river that's in front of me, and if I want to keep going, I have to describe it so that I can find the way, because you could be walking through the trees and not see it because it could be the shining light in front of you. So you have to be able to see it, but you have the opportunity to change your description of what it is to see it more clearly.
100%. Yeah. And so I will take you back to, if it's okay, an appropriate time to go back to kind of the story of the last 3 years. Unless there was other stuff you wanted to touch on.
No. But
this ties in.
Okay, it ties in because there are. I'm going through rose bushes. On my way up to that mountain,
100%.
And then there's this river that you can Oregon Trail it and walk across it and hope that you could go 2 miles forward and left. But then there's also a mountain that has a cliff that you may or may not even have the gear to it, and you decide, how am I going to do that?
That's why I say, life is hard. So that journey up to the top is going to be hard, So why do we run from hard? Why are we always running?
Hurts.
Why? Yeah, it hurts. But have we stopped to maybe shift, the meaning of hard, right? So the question is, which hard is good hard? And how do you know? So if you've got a clear picture of where you want to go, and you're going to have to somehow get through that river, you're going to have to find a spot where it's low enough, or there's a bridge, you're gonna have to build a raft, and if you are clear on where you want to go, you'll find a way through that. And then you hit those rose bushes, those thorn bushes, and now you're pushing through and you're getting torn up. You're like, oh my gosh, is this worth it? Right? But you know where you want to go. And then you've got these sweet little moments on the journey. You run into the huckleberry patch and you're like, oh my gosh, this is so great.
Right.
Giant huckleberries. Yes.
Because they're not very big, right? If you haven't been to Pacific Northwest, they're not that big.
Yeah. And that's funny. So, but I think this, this journey up, when it's hard, it's like, if you know where you're going, and that's the challenge here that I often stop and ask myself is, do I really know where I'm going, or do I really know what I want? And in the moments when I'm not sure if that hard is good or not, is usually just a question of whether I'm clear enough on where I'm going.
Yes.
And it's very easy to get, on a journey where you're crystal clear, and then all of a sudden you get detoured just a little bit, right? Something entices you, something's interesting. Maybe there's a pit stop. Maybe you do hit a really big setback, and all of a sudden you've got some inspection, from whoever coming in. You're like, man, this is going to set back sales and business, and we can't open, and now I'm really stuck, and do we just close the doors?
Yeah.
And the reason you see people push through is because they know exactly what they want. And the reason you see others not push through a lot of times is because they weren't really clear on where they were going, so it just wasn't worth it. And so when I look back at, the pain, the challenge, the hard, it's like, well, when you don't have a clear destination, the hard doesn't make sense, because who's willingly just going to take on a patch of rose bushes?
Right.
Like, hey guys, let's go for a run and just run through the rose bushes and get torn up.
No thanks.
No destination.
Yes.
Or you're just out for a daily run. You're just going to go for a daily run. There's 1,000 ways you could go. You could go north, south, east, or west. When you're going to the Vista house, it's only north, right? So I look back to our moment of starting our last business that we recently sold, and 6 years ago, we got this business going, and it's in the service industry, and started it basically from scratch, and it was really an accident how everything got going. Ended up building it to where my wife could work with me, and it was a beautiful and awesome experience. And
You're eating the huckleberries.
we're eating the huckleberries, and we were in the first 3 years of business. The first year was really hard. It was COVID actually. First 2019 we got started. 2020 was like where we really started to grow, and COVID hits, and it's like ugh. And but then in the service industry, those businesses tended to do a little better, and so by 2021, we were, on our third year, and we're doing really good, and business is growing, and we're pushing through the hard because I knew what we wanted to grow. We had a clear picture, clear vision of what this business should be. Wife's with me, and we're coming in to the winter of 2021, and with this business, it's seasonal. And so, business starts to dip off as we're hitting November. And so we would always prepare and, have to save up, and it's just a different mental game for that season. But, just to kind of highlight the hard in business is acceptable when you know where it is you want to go.
Right.
Right. And I would compare that to these moments in life where I tried these other things. I tried to start something. I tried to get into that. I tried to do that. And really the outcome, it just wasn't definitive. And I didn't have the reason why I was doing it really clearly.
You were just trying. You weren't committing.
Yeah. There was no quantitative result. Right. And so I look back on this and I was like, I knew where I was going. I knew what I wanted. And so we had built, business year 3, and we had a small team. My wife's probably about a third of the business. And we are at that point having pregnant with our third child. And she's very pregnant. We're going into November now. And so I'm kind of prepping the business and, just making sure our budget's lined up and everything. And we hit the biggest crash and burn in our lives. And up to this point, we'd had like any marriage, our challenges in every sense and form, financial, physical, mental, spiritual, all this stuff. In my personal life, I'd gone through all this stuff, and nothing prepared me for what we were going to experience that November. And it was coming on to our son's birthday of November 9th. And we were celebrating. We had 2 beautiful daughters previously. And November 9th, we have a beautiful baby. He's born in a very special way. It's on call. I'd be surprised if any of the listeners have ever heard of this. It's a French word, Encaul, I believe. And only 1, and I believe 80,000 births happen this way. And it's when the amniotic sac, the water doesn't break. And so the baby is born fully encased in the amniotic sac, like they're in a water balloon.
Yeah.
And they didn't know this was going to happen. Of course, we just knew our water didn't break. Usually it breaks on the way out. And so our baby boy Everest is born to us, and I remember catching him, and I'm freaking out. Thinking,
Sure.
What is this? Like, and if you've ever caught a child, it's like, I don't know if you caught, your kids, but it's like all of time stops, right? And like, what would be seconds, you're thinking in the hundredths of a second.
Yes.
And every single, it's slow motion. And I watch as the nurse, pierces this water and, pulls this plastic looking, lining off of my child. And it is like a Christmas wrapped baby. I mean, just perfect, and never had touched air, yet. At this moment, watch the amniotic fluid flow off and I'm holding him, I'm touching his skin, and he cries for the first time. And it was just this like absolute incredible moment. And, the nurses started to cheer, and and I realized in this moment, it was like a second or 2 of time passed, but they're cheering, and I'm like,
also
this is
cheering, like she's there.
She's like, a mom that just had birth, so
Sure.
she doesn't know what's going on. But it was an amazing moment. Anyways, we take our beautiful boy home, and unbeknownst to us, he had a metabolic disorder that wasn't detectable. And just shortly after taking him home the next day, his health declined, and we had a beautiful moment at home where our daughters got to meet him, and my parents got to meet him. Got some really beautiful photos, and then in about an 8-hour period of time, we ended up losing our child, and it was the hardest and darkest moment of my entire life. Nothing could have prepared us for this. Nobody saw it coming, and by 8 o'clock that night, the day after, it was November 10th. We were sitting at home without a child. We lost him, and this moment we've replayed and we've gone through, and in the process of healing, and going through the grieving that we've gone through, and still go through at times. There's been a healing journey here. We felt a lot of pain. We have felt a lot of hurt. My daughters, have gone through a lot of just having to overcome that loss of a beautiful little brother. But I will say that the day following was the most important moment in what determined the remainder of our lives. And in this moment, when we were together, just holding each other and comforting our daughters, we made a commitment to each other. And the commitment number one was we knew we had a choice of where our faith would go, and we're Christians, and we, knew this is a tough thing because, the first thing you want to do is start blaming and asking why.
Absolutely.
And we decided in that moment that we were going to grieve towards God. We were going to lean towards God, and we were going to grieve towards Him, and not grieve away. And that was the first most important moment and decision. And then the next decision was that we were going to show up for our children and for each other. Oh. And I will say that these were defining decisions in our life. And you said it earlier. You said, at every moment of impact, you have choices. And choices are great, but choices aren't great if you don't make a decision. A decision has to be made. And decision is what allows you to choose that next course. Yeah. But decisions become easier when you know where you're going, what you want in the future. And so in this moment, and the reason I share this is because had we not already predefined what we wanted marriage, life to be, right? Now, we couldn't predict something this horrific happening.
100%.
But we did know that we wanted a marriage that was beautiful, a marriage where, we were able to raise our children together, where we were able to be supportive and love each other and love our kids and have a unified household. We also knew what we didn't want. We didn't want divorce. We didn't want to just
blame life
and become victims
or forget about your girls
and forget about our girls. We, what did I want to do? What did my body want to do? What did her body want to do? Wanted to just cave into the pillow and give up.
Yes.
But we knew what we wanted. And so that is the most important thing is, you can know what you don't want. And most people do. And you say, what do you want? And the first thing they'll say is what they don't want, rather than actually starting with what do you want? And we knew in this moment what we wanted. And that was the defining moment for us of how we would interact with time and space and emotion and energy. And so from there, it just became a step each day, step each day, step each day. And from that moment, it was, well, I will say Everest is, we describe him as our gift. And for some people, it's hard to hear something like this happening. Yeah. And for us to use that word. Yeah. And in the beginning, it was really hard for us to even use that word. Uh-huh. But one thing we've learned, and one of the great gifts we've been given from mentors is, is the word choices you use and the stories you tell yourself. do become your reality. And we knew that we didn't want to look back on this and avoid this incident. We didn't want to forget our child just because it's too painful to go back there. We wanted to look back and have this feeling of joy and love and thankfulness and appreciation. And so we gave him that, that title of being our gift and also our mountain mover. And so I look forward, the course of the next 3 years. It was a result of following the course, of making the decisions that all led to this beautiful future that we had already predefined. And that led into, a couple no's, a couple decisive no's. Life gave us a no, right? It gave us something that was not desirable in any way, shape, or form. About 3 months later, we're going into busy season. It's 2022, and my wife is going through it, and we are a one income family on a small business.
Yes,
and it took both of us to run this thing. And my wife made the decision that she would say no to working with our business, and at that time, it was very hard, and it was a massive rejection, setback feeling in my heart that I had to deal with. And it took a lot of time for me to come back, circle around to realizing why she did that. But we just recently talked about it. And she said, I had to say no at that time. And the reason I said no is because I knew what I wanted. And I knew if I stayed with the business, it wasn't the path to getting what I wanted, which is I wanted healing so I could be restored, so I could be the woman that you married. And that I know that I am, and the mom to our daughters, and our children. And she said, and I knew what I wanted, and I knew that wasn't part of the path. I didn't see that at the time, Blue. And it was the hardest. It was the hardest thing, not just losing my child, but then losing my wife and partner, and
potentially your business.
And so I was faced with a big decision, and the decision I was faced with was, would I just fold the business? And at that time, I almost did. And I made a decision in that moment that I would say no to quitting, and I wanted to. And the reason I said no to quitting is because I also had a vision, a clear picture of where I wanted my family to be in the future, of where I wanted us to be and my marriage to be. And so the defining, decision was based on where it is, that we decided we wanted to be in. And so that pattern continued, and I will, take you to present day, about a year and a half in. No, actually right away, we realized we had to replace my wife, and ended up hiring on and outsourcing a position for my wife as a virtual assistant out of the Philippines. Didn't think it was possible. Absolutely wasn't opposed to it. I just didn't think in a service-based local business we could do this.
Yeah.
We ended up taking this leap of faith because I knew where I wanted to go, and this sounded outrageous, but it's like, okay, well, let's swim across the river here and hope we don't get swept away.
Yeah. You took a chance.
And we took a chance.
Yeah.
And my wife carried the weight of the home life. The mental, she nurtured and cared for our children as they went through their grieving process. And I took on the business, and we did we ran in our lanes. And so we ended up hiring on this beautiful gal, Mel, who basically a year and a half later had a conversation with her. And I said, Mel, you've saved our life. I don't know if I've shared this with you, but you really have impacted
your marriage,
not just our business, but our marriage,
Yeah.
like my parenting life, my children, my time, my soul. I almost just threw in the towel, and I went and got a job somewhere and called it quits. And I know I'm made to be an entrepreneur. I love business, but I was to the point of almost just saying, put it aside. It's too much. And Mel came on and changed everything for us. And a year and a half later, when I had this conversation with her, was this very defining next moment of her telling me how much of an impact it's had on her life. And
as a VA,
as a virtual assistant in the Philippines, not having had an experience where she's had a relationship with a small business in the U.S. Most of the experience over there is large, corporate companies, call centers, a lot of mistreatment, underpaid, and that's not who I am. So in my mind, I didn't think anything was, strange that I've done. It's just she's an amazing human. I'm going to treat her well like anybody. Mm-hmm. And she was really impacted. And so in that moment, we realized there's a lot of other people, a lot of other businesses mm-hmm. that are in this situation that, are needing to either replace somebody they lost or save on labor, or they just don't know what they're going to do. They need some sort of service or ability to fill in. And Mel and I talked about it, and we're like, well, do you know some other people like you? And she's like, yeah, I know a lot of people like me that would love an opportunity like this. And, at that point I had some other friends asking me about hiring on, and it was like, this amazing timing. And 2 weeks later, got a call from a friend who was our first guinea pig. And we did a recruit, and he actually, this gal worked with him for 3 years. Mm-hmm. Did our second recruit a year later, and then we just decided to go all in. And so I look back to this moment in our life where really everything should have shut down, and statistically most marriages don't make it. And so we made this decision, this isn't going to be the end. This isn't where we stop. We're going to move forward. We're going to create a different, compelling future. And what it led into was now we've got an outsourcing agency, and we're able to bless other businesses and impact these, amazing, like incredibly talented virtual assistants out of the Philippines, and match them with business owners who care, and who want to nurture, and who are, mission aligned. And so that came out of this, as a result of me saying no to quitting, and also of my wife saying no to working, right? And I credit her courage, because she knew what it was going to do. She knew what it was going to do, and it was a very, very hard decision. So I think no, sometimes when it comes from us, we've got to be able to say no to what's good, to say yes to what's best. And she taught me that, so I won't take credit for that, but I live by that.
I love that.
And so, in this moment, it was, this isn't what's best. I know what's best, and I'm going to have to say yes to what's best. I mean, saying no here. And so, that's one thing that came from it. But the other beautiful thing was we realized, we could continue to focus on this loss and be the victim, and, even thrive everywhere else. But every time it comes back to our loss, be this very sorry, sad story, and try to, get sympathy and but man,
you didn't.
I'll tell you what, over the course of the next year, I realized how many people are going through something, if not the same thing as we're going through. And my eyes were opened, and my heart was broken, because I realized, man, our what we went through was just this sweet moment in time for us to be more relatable to the thousands and millions of people out there that are going through it,
loss,
and don't have necessarily the community around them, or the ability to get through, or maybe a mentor or somebody in their life, or the finances to overcome. We were set back and hit hard financially. Business was different for the next year. I mean, it hurt us in a lot of ways, and it set us back in certain things that we're still coming out of 3 years later. But the beauty of it is that we realized, well, why can't our story be something that lifts and, speaks into others? And so we knew we were going to do something. The first year was too raw, but the second year we started something called the ForeveRest Foundation.
ForeveRest Foundation.
The ForeveRest Foundation, and our son's name is Everest, and it's for him. But it's also kind of a play on words. It's Forever Rest. It spells the same. And so we want to bring a rest to these families that are feeling just absolute loss and turmoil, and so and hopelessness.
And you've helped families through that foundation.
And we have. And so the second year we started an event. It's our 5K walk, run, and cold plunge. And so far we've been hosting it in Liberty Lake in Spokane, and we'll do a 5K run, walk, followed by a cold plunge in the river. And we've done it 2 years now. We'll be going on our 3rd year in November. And we raise money for another family that is going through what we went through and has recently had the loss of a child. And
because it is hard. I mean, you were talking about being able to get up out of bed and go to work because the bills still have to be paid. Just because you went through something doesn't mean that the bank cares about that, or that the gas isn't in the car, or that your kids need food still. And you've not only experienced that, but you know what that pain was like, and now you're able to basically help other people through that gift. And so you started a foundation. Can you tell me a little bit more about that?
Yeah. So by the end of this year, it'll be a certified 501c3 to receive, donations. But we've been running it for the last 2 years, really just more out of a heart's desire to just take that focus off of ourselves and really just have that impact on others. So as far as getting involved with it, if anybody, knows somebody who's gone through something, our Facebook group would be probably the best place to get a hold of us. And that is the ForeveRest Foundation. And so it's ForeveRest, ForeveRest Foundation. And I'm sure you'll have that linked, but our Facebook group is a great place to just get connected, to be updated on when the next event is. And we have a vision for that in the future. And that's something that's truly a compelling driving force in business, in everything that we do, is knowing that we could really change and impact some lives and help hopefully save some marriages and be able to give, that gift of community support, and also to support the community around the family that's had the loss, because what we realize
it affects everybody.
Is the harder thing is for the families that don't know how to communicate with the family that had the loss, the surrounding community. So we're basically our hardest to be able to support them as well, and show them how they can reach out and have impact on those people. So, so that is, ultimately the story of the last 3 years. And I would say just, the overflow of us just knowing you can't quit. You can't quit. You quit and it's game over.
Well, especially when other people depend on you, right?
Exactly.
And I will say that you have taken this absolutely traumatic no in your life, and you have run with it, and you've helped other families, you've helped communities, and you have the most amazing family. And I know that you're one of the greatest dads that I look up to. You're a great coach, and you're someone who takes kindness and runs with it. And even though you're optimistic, it's like you don't see that negative. And it's like you try to bring everybody else up with you, and you have done an amazing job. And I am so proud to, A, become your friend, and B, just to know you in my life and see what the difference that you're making, because you are making a difference in this world, Chad. You and Annie Mae, and whether it's with Sidekick with your business with the VAs, or whether and helping people in the Philippines or other businesses that are local, but also the families of the parents that you help coach, or your kids who look up to you like a god. Honestly, they adore you even when they play with their pins on the sides. It's like, you are a good man, and I am lucky to have you in my life, and I look up to you, and my wife Heidi and I love you and your family, and I cannot, there are no words that come with being able to get through that. But if anybody is doing it, it is you, and you're running with it and making the best of it and changing other people's lives. And maybe this horrible trauma opened up so many doors that you had no idea that you could make a difference in other people's lives. But that is exactly what you're doing. And you've done that with opening your heart and your family and your home to so many others, including ours. And I appreciate you, and thank you for being a part of my life.
Thank you. It's mutual.
Well, I appreciate you. And I don't know. I love having you in our life, and I love that you shared your story, because I think it does hit home. And I think that there are more people out there that have been affected by something like that, but then everybody knows someone who's gone through some trauma, and you hit the nail on the head of like, how do we speak to those people? Right? When someone loses a family member or even a dog, like, how do you want to be approached? Are there words to be said? How can I help you? How can I be that supportive person without overwhelming you or telling you what's right and wrong? And it's like, we all need that help. And there's a time for it, and you're that person doing it. So thank you for sharing your story, Chad. Thank you for being a part of it.
Yeah. Thanks for listening.
Well, I love that story, and it hit home. So I know I will send people towards that foundation. I've walked it, but my wife ran it with a rucksack, and we've done the cold plunge. And thank you so much, and we're going to do it this year.
Okay.
So thank you for being a part of it.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
I appreciate you. Thanks, Chad.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you so much for listening to Navigating No. If this episode brings you value, or you know someone who could benefit from it, the best way to support the show is by sharing and subscribing. It's completely free and helps us reach more people. And if you have any questions, feedback, or guests you'd like me to interview, drop a comment while you're there. I'd love to hear from you. And most importantly, thank you for tuning in. And let's continue sharing optimism and positivity.